Perfect. All right. Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone, and we'll get this started. My name is Annabelle Pacheco. I am a real estate investor. I am a broker, been in business for about 24 years and part of a global real estate company named eXp Realty. And really, my goal is to share with everyone on this call every week the steps that I took in purchasing my first multifamily deal. I love to bring guest speakers from the multifamily space to share with us and really just to expand on our knowledge. And I encourage everyone to participate, ask questions. This is a safe place. You know, if you're going through something right now, you're not sure how to take or like just what those next steps should be, ask questions. If I don't have the answers, I definitely have the resources that I can go to and get that answer for you guys. I'm not selling anything. I'm not offering anyone anything. I am just, and I'm not a financial advisor. I am just sharing my story with everyone. So just a little bit about myself. I started in the mortgage industry back in the mid 90s, doing a lot of FHA, refinances, single family residences. That was my thing. And interest rates in those days were 9.5% fixed rates. I mean, I was doing tons of refis at 9.5%, and people were very happy to get those rates. You know, and I think a lot of people are spoiled today with 2% and 3%. You know, we had a couple, maybe within this last year, and 5% is like, oh my gosh, right? It's so much, but it's a, you know, it's a real number, and I think it's a great thing. It's starting to, we're going to start to see some normal activity in the market, which will be great. It's been so lopsided right now, and I'm kind of happy to see this change. Also started, I did a lot of, while I was doing refis and loans, I started purchasing properties, and we were flipping, my husband and I were flipping, we were rehabbing, flipping these properties, and have done over 100 properties throughout my career. And during that time, we did come across two to four units that we actually rehabbed and we kept, we rented out and managed them for a couple of years. And then, you know, obviously as the market got good, we're able to sell. And again, just continuously buying, flipping, and just got to a point where like it was enough of doing that. And also the market changed. We couldn't find these really great opportunities. And so we deviated a bit and we built a restaurant, 150 capacity restaurant from ground up, staffed about 15 people, including managers, chefs, servers, and ran that for about 8 years. Hardest time of my life. I mean, if anyone's ever been in the restaurant business, wow. I mean, it's talk about like real sacrifice, and you have to I think you have to love it and be passionate about it. And I was not passionate about it, and I was not loving it. I was not a chef. I didn't do any of that stuff. We just kind of did it as a business and thought this was going to go great. And it was 8 years. I mean, learned a lot, met great people, but so happy to hand over the key when we closed escrow, and felt so great, and just went back to what I've always done, which was real estate. And really appreciate real estate, love it. And there's nothing else I would do other than real estate, and now obviously investment. So the last 10 years, I have focused 100% on just representing clients in both the residential and the commercial real estate. And in 2015, I purchased my first 34 doors. And that was huge. That was a really big step. And then now I've expanded into El Paso, Texas, 310 doors, Houston, 180 doors, and just recently added 75 doors in Cleveland. So very happy, and things are moving along. And, you know, for me, during this time of just flipping and just life, right, there comes a moment where you're like, okay, how can we make our money work for us, right? Instead of us having to just go out there and I mean, yes, we still have to go out and produce it, but it would be so nice if we could figure a way where, cash flow just comes in and it supplements, right, while you're doing the other stuff and creating capital to invest again. And so for us, it was multifamily. We were really looking at, okay, how do we create cash flow? How do we create generational wealth? And we thought, for sure, for us, it just resonated. It made total sense, and it was multifamily. And really, I hope that, this also happens to any of you on this call, that you guys decide, yes, multifamily is the way we want to go, or the route we want to invest in. So here are some of the reasons why multifamily was something like just we wanted to do. Number one was cash flow, right? Like, nutshell, rental income minus all of your expenses is your cash flow. So this is the amount of money that we were making on a monthly basis from acquiring this property. Number two, it was the actual loan pay down, which honestly was kind of cool, because here you have tenants that are paying your mortgage. And really, that's the reality of it. It was just a wonderful thing. Three is appreciation, right? We bought this property, and when we bought this property in 2015, honestly, I thought we were overpaying, because we had friends who had purchased for 50% less than what we had paid. So we were definitely overpaying, but I was okay, because we were looking at the long haul of this, right? Over time, this will appreciate. And then number four, obviously the tax benefits, depreciation, where you're allowed, you're able to expense a portion of that physical structure each year, and the 1031 exchange, which allows you to just pretty much defer that capital gain tax. And there's no limit. You can do this as many times as you want, as long as there is a property out there that makes financial sense for you to do that. So I wanted to share an example of the property that we came across, and it's a value add opportunity. So pretty much, right, value add, and I just put the definition there so that you guys can read. It's the strategy that involves buying the worst property in the best neighborhood, increasing its net operating income and the value of the property through the renovation. So when I came across this property, and and I'm just giving you guys a little nutshell. Obviously there's more, but I don't want to break it all down, because we don't have time to break it all down. When I came across this property, obviously I had already done some research. I knew the location that I was going into. I knew what market. I knew where I was going. I had done all that research for it. Now it took me about 5 years to prepare to purchase this multifamily. Okay, this didn't happen in a year or overnight. This was a 5-year goal. And so, through there, you start studying the market, you start connecting with people, you just start making your connections. So when I was out in this property I bought in Dallas and a Grand Prairie area, when I was out there, there's just so happened to be, I was always on the phone, and I looked at LoopNet and I see this property come up, and I asked my friend, and I'm, like, hey, is this a good area? He's like, yes, you know what? It's not a bad area. And I'm like, let's go. We got to go right now. We got to go take a look at it. Drove by. It was a great deal. And so I called the owner, or the agent, and the agent happened to be the owner of this property, which was amazing, because I'm a buyer who happened to be an agent myself. And so it was like perfect, right? We're both just kind of negotiating. We hit it off. And we negotiated this deal. I didn't need representation, and he didn't either. And I just I'm like, I'm going to just ask and see if he'd be willing to finance, so that I didn't have to go through the whole loan process. And I was ready to go through that loan process, but it was hard. I was overwhelmed. This was my first building. And I thought, you know what, if he could just seller finance, I don't care. We had enough money to go into this deal. We'll do it. And our friend was like, I wouldn't ask, just go get your loan, pay him off. And I'm like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know what? He says, no. All right. So we go and we get our loan. So he ended up carrying the note. We made payments to him. We gave him $350,000. And we went in there. First 2 years, we did a 2-year note, and it was just perfect timing, right? The first year we just went in there, started rehabbing and renting those units. And by year 2, pretty much that property had doubled in value. And it was so much easier to get a loan because now you have a property that's performing. And we refinanced, we cashed out about $1 million, got all our money back, and have zero money invested in that today.
You do put your
Can I
thing out
have
so
you
that
guys
people
mute yourselves, please? Goodness. Hey, Jess, maybe you can do that.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
muted them.
Okay, perfect. So you know what? Have zero invested in this property, and value of this property today is like $2.8 million. So this is a good example here of what a value add opportunity is. You know, I wish that it would be easy to come across these deals, but I think it's definitely harder to do that nowadays. And you're going to have to go through a lot of properties to try to find something like this. But here's a picture of the property. It's 24, there's 2 buildings, 24 units, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And then we have 10 units, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. So that right there is just a little bit about myself and the first multifamily deal that I purchased and went into on my own. And you know, definitely it's been a great thing, and we've done very well. And you know what, all I could say is it's definitely the way to go if you want to go into multifamily. It's definitely very nice. So anyway, we have 2 guest speakers today. That is Jen and Stacy Conkey. Welcome. They are founders of Warrior of Wealth and the Remote Family Investing Academy. You know, I saw this title and I thought, oh my gosh, remote, that's my thing. And I think that's the thing for everybody, right? Everybody wants, I mean, at least I want to be remote. I don't want to have to do business in one place and just be forced to be in business. And that's one of the reasons why I said, you know what, I want Jen and Stacy to come on and just share what they do with my group here. And so just a little background on Jen and Stacy. They have 20 years as entrepreneurs and real estate investors. Through their diverse real estate experiences, Jen and Stacy know what it takes to identify deals and make offers on properties that will build a long-lasting wealth portfolio. With over a decade of experience sharing knowledge with other investors, Jen and Stacy have taught thousands of people across the globe what it takes to succeed in multifamily and real estate investing with actionable strategies that make cash flow real estate fun and easy. So I welcome Jen and Stacy. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Annabelle.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Stop sharing here and open it up. Yes.
Right on. So what's the audience here, Annabelle? How many people are currently investing or interested in this? Like, what's the best topics we can cover? Is it all new?
So I think, no, we've got a couple here that have invested, and I think there are definitely some that are starting to and are interested in getting involved. So I would say we have a little bit of both.
Okay, no problem. Novice here. I love it. Thank you. Okay, we just like to know who the audience is as we tailor the message, and hopefully you can leave with something that actionable, right? So a lot of people, we do everything remote. We have been doing it for 17 years. We didn't know each other the entire time, obviously, but we both started in 2003 doing 2 different types of strategies. And by the time I met Stacy is where I actually learned remote. I was one of those folks doing the DIY in my own backyard and struggling. So one of the things that when we first started talking and moving towards a remote mentality helped us scale better, right? So some people, when we say remote, they start to get a little nervous and they're like, oh, wait a minute, I have to be there and touch it and feel it and see it and smell it and all the things. And I can honestly say that we have never been in any of our properties we've invested in 17 different markets across the country, never stepped foot in any of our properties. Well, I haven't since I went remote, but before I used to actually be the one swinging a hammer, which was not scalable. I'll let you know. But yeah, we have a really cool system that approaching the small residential multifamily and for apartments. So, oh, I hear somebody. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay. No,
Sorry.
we have the same situation when we're running one. It's difficult. So yeah, you want to go ahead and give your little spiel on one of the two strategies, or she's the talker.
So if everybody can just put in the chat, there's where are you at? Have you invested before? Are you new to investing and remote? We want to deliver something that is very valuable. I can talk on about 350 different topics. I want to make your time here absolutely like mind-blowing, but I need to know. So I know that we have one person who's a novice, East Coast transplant in San Diego now. Oh, we just
left San Diego.
We're the opposite. We're a San Diego transplant to Florida. All right. Anyone else want to say like where you're at? So we can, otherwise we'll kind of just go into, we'll just hit on remote. Philadelphia, never invested, love being remote. Process of growing a portfolio and scaling up.
Awesome.
Okay.
Very
Awesome,
cool.
awesome. Okay. In New York. Okay.
Okay.
So one of the things that's really common, so Jen and I have been investing since 2003, so it'll be 20 years next year. And obviously our beginnings were different. I've been doing remote from the very start, just because when I started, I lived in California, and I know Annabelle, you live in California as well. There were three challenges for me when I started off investing or trying to invest there. One, California is super tenant friendly, which the opposite of it for us is very landlord unfriendly. So it's a difficult place to do business if you're in the business of owning rental real estate. It's more challenges than there need to be. But that was one thing that I didn't even know was a big challenge back then. But really it was the prices and the competition that made investing there really difficult, especially when you're brand new. I didn't have a lot of capital at the time, or really any to speak of. And just the barrier of entry was very high. One, just very competitive. So even if I had money, it was hard to get in a deal. And on top of it, the prices were so high that, even a down payment was a lot. So thankfully for me, when I was new, I ended up coming across another investor who had been investing from Canada in the States. And I was like, okay, well, how are you doing that? So I learned about remote investing very, very early. And I've always done that. I've never gone to my properties. I feel like if we ended up getting a deal locally, I would feel confused about, should I go there just because I can? But what about traffic? And I don't want to go to Home Depot and pick things out. That's super time consuming. So my whole experience over the past 20 years has really been learning to manage, find, vet, like interview and vet teams remotely in the markets that we're going to invest. So that always starts with doing market research and understanding like what makes a good market where, when we're doing buy and hold investment for multifamily, the plan is to hold it for a long time or to be in a market that other people would want to hold it for a long time. So we're always looking at things like population and population growth and job growth and, infrastructure, what's coming into the city. So once we've done that, the next part of it is really just learning how to find and develop a team. And this is something where a lot of people have a difficult wrapping their mind around the whole idea of remote, but William, you live in New York. That's not an easy place to invest. That's like we always put California and New York together. It's competitive, pricey, and super tenant friendly, right? They're difficult in the same ways. Philadelphia, I don't know as much, but the fact that you just love the idea of being remote, it really gives you location freedom. So the idea of remote investing is, I'm going to use my laptop, most likely. I'm going to look up information that's going to help me find property managers that are going to manage the type of properties I'm looking to buy. I'm going to look for realtors who have experience in finding and selling the types of properties I'm looking to buy. I'm looking for general contractors who have experience in the type of property I'm looking to buy there. And I'm looking for home inspectors or building inspectors, depending on the size of the property, that have experience. So what we're looking to do is really find a dream team on the ground in the markets that we're looking to invest. And the best way, and Annabelle was just on, we have a weekly Ask Us Anything that we do for members of our Facebook group. And so she probably just heard me say this exact thing, but I'll say it to you guys because I think it's the thing that helps to start to shift your mindset when you realize remote really isn't that difficult or that different than what you're probably already doing. So if you think about it, if you're at home and your roof starts leaking in your house, like, what are you doing? Are you walking out your front door and like, yeah, like, are you yelling up and down the street because you're local and because you can? No. What are you doing? You're pulling up your laptop and you're going to one of the many websites that you can find contractors, and you're Googling or you're looking for a roofer in that market, right? So if you start to realize like the way you actually operate day to day, if something needed to be done isn't any different, regardless of whether you're sitting in Florida or in Italy or in New York or California, it doesn't matter. You're still using your cell phone and your laptop to start reaching out and interviewing and asking questions. So the idea of remote investing, even though it seems like, oh, I need to be there and see it and meet people in person, you rarely meet people in person now as it is you're calling and talking to vendors or contractors. You're usually doing that over the phone and or over Zoom. And over time, you start to realize that you can know someone at a pretty deep level without ever meeting them in person. And the more we operate, COVID kind of made it a lot easier for people because people got accustomed to getting to know people remotely and through Zoom. You start realizing like you feel like you know these people even when you meet them in person. It's like, oh, I already know you. It's not like you're meeting. So it's just really a mindset shift and recognizing that if you can operate in this new way, you really open up the entire US becomes like your playground. And that's something that a lot of our students say, like especially if they live in a place that's investing unfriendly or it's too expensive or too competitive, they only had their market to invest in before and they just couldn't.
Yeah.
And now they can go anywhere because they know how to research a market. They know how to build a team. You analyze your deals based on data that comes in. You have a team on the ground to go and see the property. And what they see is probably far more meaningful than what you would see if you went. Because assuming that nobody here is a licensed building inspector or home inspector, you got to think, what is your building inspector or home inspector going to see? Or what are you going to see that they're not going to see? Right. And you start realizing that you have professionals on the ground that can be your eyes and they can be your ears with a lot more knowledge about that particular niche of real estate than what you have. And we don't, people say, oh, how could I possibly trust people in another market? We don't. Trust isn't part of it. We say trust but verify, but really it's just verify. And over time, as the team members continue to prove themselves to us, then yes, we'll most likely continue to operate and working with them. But there's never a time where trust becomes the thing. Every single thing that we do, every operational step we have has checks and balances. I used to be an auditor, and part of being an auditor is recognizing that where you need internal controls, like where is there a potential leak? Where is a potential for theft? Where is a potential for loss? And then looking to see what internal controls can I put in place to make sure that can't happen. And that's what we've done over the past 20 years is, through a lot of trial and error, especially in the first several years, is figuring out like where in the systems things could go wrong. And then re-looking at that, like, how do we operate differently to make sure that we're not sending money to a contractor for work that's been done only on the surface, or it's only halfway done. So
we have a couple of people already asked some questions. Is it okay if we answer those, Annabelle?
Yeah, actually, I have a quick question on that before we deviate. So you're establishing a team in this area and like a contractor. Now, is there someone physically there representing you that's actually connecting with the contractor, or are you just connecting with the contractor via Zoom or phone calls?
It could be either or both. I mean, it depends on at what point you're talking about. So if we're talking about in due diligence, then our realtor is probably going to be the one who's going to meet the contractor there because someone needs to be there to let the contractor in, right? Once we already own the property, depending on the size of the property, it's most likely going to be our property manager. Okay. But after a period of time, depending, again, there's a difference because we do all levels of multifamily and we teach both small multifamily, 2 to 4 units, and then also apartment buildings. So those are a little bit different. But if it's an apartment building, it's our property manager who they're interfacing with for scheduling and for all the logistics on something that's a 2 to 4 unit. Initially, it's our realtor, a little bit our property manager, and then we have like a code for the contractor to get in that we can see when are they there, and then we're communicating with them directly. And then we bring in a home inspector as our eyes and ears to make sure that the work is being done correctly and properly before we release draws.
And we also make sure that we're hiring contractors and that are not associated with the realtor and are also not associated with the inspector. So there's no bias in the team.
Got it. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Yeah, let's go ahead and answer some questions.
Absolutely. So I believe it's Kraus & Co. That's a cool
Oh.
one. Okay, so do you buy more in the same market that you hold property, or are you seeking new markets? Yes.
Both.
Yes. So to answer your question, so we do usually what we like to do is when we go into a market, I like to test it with a deal and see how that works, see what happens. And then if it looks like it's going to be a favorable market, we can go a little bit deeper into it. That happened for us in Indianapolis about 5 years ago. We went in, got a couple of properties. It started to perform really well. So we went deeper. So we have a pretty good, like a multi-million-dollar portfolio in Indianapolis. So in that market, yes, it's one of those situations where we'll change our strategy up and we're in there for probably another 3 years and then try to sell that portfolio, take the equity from it and put it into a different emerging market. All of our others we just will hold it and keep it steady. We do have a different strategy where we'll do a value add, and we will also be limited partners because we have a lot of cash flow. So we'll be limited partners in syndicated deals also each year to put some money to work. And then we'll do one value add. So we'll do a larger value add project. This year, we're doing a motel. It's outside of our normal business model, but we've never been in that market before from a multifamily perspective, but it's in Wallace, Idaho. We bought the Stardust in Wallace, Idaho. And that's a new model for us. But what we like to do is definitely do some value adds while still doing stabilize. And it's usually a 3-to-1 ratio for us. We are always open to new markets. If the numbers make sense, we're going to get in there. We do avoid the East and West Coast, mostly because our capital won't go as far. We like to, if I have 100 grand or 200 grand, I want to try and get as many deals as possible with that 200 grand versus sinking it all into one asset. So yes, we're always looking for new markets to enter into. We're just open to whatever makes sense. And then I think it's Ashika. I don't want to butcher that name because I think it's probably really beautiful, but
it's close. It's Ashika. Sorry.
Ashika. Oh, that's even better. That's even better. When you're a beginner with limited funds, does the cost of creating a team take away from your income? No. And I'll tell you this, everybody in this business is motivated through revenue and being able to be friends and make money together. Honestly, that's how we approach it. So when we're talking to brokers, we're talking to realtors and they're bringing us deals, they know that we're a performer. We're going to close and we're going to have more deals. They also know that we do in volume. So we're going to be back. We're going to be in that market. Now, in the beginning, I went into a market. Once it was validated, I stuck to it. That was a while ago, sticking to one market. That contractor, that realtor, that team knows, man, I'm here for a while. We're going to make a lot of money together. So they're truly incentivized to work with you. So that's one of the strategies that we lean on is heavy relationships. And you'd be surprised 10, 15 years later, all of a sudden your email is blowing up because those folks are like, hey, have you seen this deal? Do you want this? And so we start getting that because it's a relationship business, but it didn't cost any money to do it. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We all make money together.
Yeah. Sorry, just without getting into like the nitty-gritty details, it's kind of more at some point you're providing sort of a revenue for them from your revenue. So there's a group benefit.
Yeah. So when the realtors and brokers bring you deals and you're closing on them, they get paid for that when you close.
Oh, right. Duh.
Once they know that you're a closer, that you close consistently, they're going to bring you more deals. And, they might start off with not even the best deals that they had before, but then all of a sudden the veil comes off and all the off-market deals start coming to you. And you're like, oh, cool. They know I'm a performer now. So I'm going to get the good deals. So yeah, they get paid. And the contractors are getting paid also to do any rehabs on the value adds that we're doing. They're getting their cut too. It's a win-win.
Thank you.
I know I get asked a lot, like, how do you decide what market to go into? Like where, if I have money right now, because I get this asked all the time, I have money right now, where do I go? How would you guys answer that question?
Well, we don't. So the one thing that we don't do with our students or really with anyone, we don't say, oh, you should go to XYZ market because it's like, well, giving you a fish versus teaching you to fish. And we believe in the teaching you for a lifetime because any one market that we say, that might be good today, or it might have been good 2 months ago, and we haven't been doing. We had not updated on what it is now. So even if we say it now, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So what we tell people, just at least to help narrow it down, is you want to be in areas where the population. So first of all, like Jen said, we kind of cut off the coasts. Not that you can't invest in the coast. It's just that your money will go further, especially in like the Midwest. Like your money is just going to go further. You probably won't see as much appreciation, but your money will go further. So that's one thing I'd say is if you are trying to scale or trying to get just more units, tend to go to the middle will help you get there. But once you're kind of narrowing it down, you're looking at population and population growth, meaning, so you can go to Google and put population of whatever city, and you can see what it's done over the past 10 to 20 years. And if it has stayed at least steady, but ideally then increase, that's a market I want to look further into. And the opposite would be, let's say, looking at a city, and I've seen that over time, the population's actually been going down. So we're looking at a long-term buy and hold strategy. And again, even if we're doing a value add, somebody else is looking at a long-term buy and hold strategy with that same property. I want to be an area where there's more people coming there. And probably because there's job growth and industry and things like that, things that make it that people want to stay there or grow. And as the population is declining, but we have the same number of units, now we have a supply and demand issue. We have less demand with more supply, which is either going to drive up my vacancy rate, that's my vacancy expense, or decrease my revenue, or increase my marketing expense, all the things that drive my net operating income down. So one thing we always look at is going to be population growth. Population itself is, we don't look at areas that have less than 100,000 people, like in the major metro area. We have no problem with going like to the suburbs of that. But when you're researching, if someone's brand new and just starting and randomly looking at properties, and you're finding properties that are in like small towns, we won't do that, because first of all, your team, we rely on having our power team, right? And when you have a small population, you don't have a big pool of people to draw from, which increases the risk of you not being able to have the people you need when you need them. So that's the first thing. And then the other big thing that we're looking at is just job growth in the area. To some degree, you have to kind of wipe out all of 2020 because it throws, all the numbers are weird. So I understand that if you look right now, there's going to be a weirdness. So you got to cut out that one spot. But what we're looking for is an area where the job growth is at least steady or on the incline. You don't want to see unemployment climbing for the same reason you don't want to see the population declining. We don't want to be in an area where there's now fewer people that can afford to pay the rent.
There's also the 1% rule.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So in the 1% rule, we mostly teach the 1% rule when we're talking about 2 to 4 units, but I'll talk a little bit about that because I know we might have people that hit kind of both audiences. When you're looking to invest in something that's going to be like small multifamily, 2 to 4 units, there's something called the 1% rule. And that will help you more quickly identify if you're in an area where the numbers just don't make any sense. And I always use San Diego as the example of where it doesn't work, because we lived there for so long. But in San Diego, I was like, the house that we lived in was just like, just a normal regular house and just an average neighborhood. And let's say we're going to pay $700,000 for that house. Well, I know that we could get maybe $3,000, $3,200 for rent. So the 1% rule would mean if I'm paying $700,000 for it, I would need to get at least $7,000 a month for that to have a likely positive cash flow. Well, if I could only get $3,200 a month and I'd need 7 to meet the 1% rule, I'm just not in a good cash flow market. So sometimes like using those extremes can help you be like, okay, gotcha. That's why New York, California, they don't work very well for cash flow. Whereas if you find somewhere that's more, let's call Midwest, somewhere where I can buy a house for $150,000, I'd have to be able to rent it for $1,500 a month to meet the 1% rule. The 1% rule is not an analysis. I'm not saying that I'm going to buy it based on that, but what it tells me is at least I'm in a market where the prices and the rents are more in line with what is probably going to cash flow. And then of course, then you move into multifamily. And let's say I'm in a market where I can pick up a duplex for $150,000 and I can rent out each unit for $800 a month. Well, that's $1,600 a month on a $150,000 purchase price. That meets the 1% rule and it exceeds it a little bit. So that's the other thing. When you're trying to like narrow down markets, you might find a place that's got great job growth and great population growth, but you're seeing like these San Diego price versus rent thing. Don't burn a lot of calories there, because it's difficult to get started in a place like that, because every analysis you do is going to show negative cash flow. And that's not the game we're in, obviously. But you're right. That's 1% rules. Another one.
And another thing that I like to look at or consider as a key indicator of a market is, you'll hear a lot of people talking about how there's bidding wars going on and it's a seller's market. And quite frankly, I'm not trying to enter a proverbial seller's market, because now I'm, having escalation clause and trying to get the deal, and I might not be getting it at the right deal, but it might not make sense. So for me, I'm looking at days on market. So if properties are just on the market for a day or two and it's just really super hot, I tend to not try and go into that because I'm not trying to get in bidding wars. I'm trying to look more on, have the properties, is there a considerable amount of inventory? Not considerable, like, oh my God, there's so much inventory, but like that sweet spot where there's inventory and the days on market is reasonable. And it's not like you're going there. So you have some wiggle room to negotiate versus the seller saying, hey man, there's no inventory here and I could pretty much sell it for whatever I want, because they're right, they probably can. And that's not somewhere where I want to be burning any calories. So those are just a couple of tips on what we're looking at.
Well, I didn't invest in California. I went to Texas.
Oh, right.
Forget it. California.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
It was, there was nothing. I couldn't get myself into anything in California.
Yeah, it's a hard place to invest. Even if you can't afford to, it's a hard place. It's a hard place to invest.
Even if you can't afford to, I would say your money is better leveraged in a different area where it goes further.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sandy, you had asked the question, you're saying that you're new at flipping. You want to have a mentor who's been successful at it. Did we have a mentor originally? One of the reasons that for me personally, I've always had the heart of a teacher. Even when I was back doing accounting, I would always want to teach people whatever I knew. Let me tell you all about debits and credits. They're the most exciting things ever for whatever reason. But when I started investing in real estate and I went through and got my education, which was quite awful education, it was very incomplete. After like a year and a half, I was like, you know what, this is awful. And I didn't have a mentor. And even the education I got was lacking so much that back then I had said, you know what, this should not be so hard for people. Like it shouldn't be so hard for people to be able to get started and do this, which is why back then I was like, if I ever figure this out, I'm going to go back and teach it, which is why
that's why we created the academy.
It is why we created the academy. So I did not have a mentor back there. And it was very hard because everything I learned, I had to learn through the school of hard knocks. And that's a pain financially and emotionally, mentally, that's a difficult way to learn. So I do recommend you do it, that you have a mentor that helps you. But I just want to address one thing that you say in there and just ask you to be cautious right now. So when you say I'm new at flipping and that you want to have a mentor, the only thing I'd say is like Jen and I've done tons of fix and flips, like tons of them. And a couple of years ago, we saw I would have sworn for the past 2.5, 3 years now that the market was going to tank at any time. And then it kept somehow just like being held up. And I was like, well, okay, maybe not.
It's because they kept printing money.
Sorry. Yeah. So the thing that I just want to caution you, if you do decide to do fix and flip as a way of just helping to mitigate risk, I'd be very nervous about flipping right now because interest rates are going up and they're going to go up and up, which the whole idea is to slow down the market, and it's going to work. But when you're in the middle of a fix and flip, ask me how I know, and all of a sudden something shifts or changes and you're left holding it, it's a horrible, first of all, it's a terrible feeling because you had all this profit in mind. But if you're going to do that, here's what I would want you to do as a backup risk mitigation strategy. When you're analyzing your deals for doing a fix and flip, if you're going to do that, make sure you also run the numbers as a rental, just in case the market, because the market, like we don't know when the market's going to slow down. We've thought it's going to slow down for a long time. Now that interest rates are going up, I know it will be. I just don't know when. It hasn't slowed down that much yet, but it probably will. So just make sure you have a backup strategy so that if you had to end up holding it as a rental, you might be like, well, that's a bummer. It's not what I wanted, but at least I'm not losing money every month. At least it can have some kind of positive cash flow. That's my only thing I'd say to that.
And that's great advice. Thank you. I've just been toying with it. First of all, I have my real estate license. I've had it for about 8 years. I've bought a few investment properties myself, a couple waterfront properties and a condo. And so I've never done this type of thing. I came from the corporate world. I was in sales and marketing. I actually used to teach many, many years ago. So I'm kind of like you. You always have something to say. But that said, I've been thinking, I just kind of wanted to get into something new and learn. And so I've been kind of toying with this idea. I do have some opportunity in another state, actually Texas. A good friend of ours is a contractor. He did a lot of our work in Dallas on a home that we had there. But I kind of just wanted to do it locally because then I could learn. I could be on site myself and learn. And that's kind of how I am. I like learning everything. And And then, once you figure it out, then figure out, how you're going to do bigger things. Right. So, but I live in California as well. I live over here near Calabasas.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So, I'm just trying to figure it out and figure out, and I think your advice is awesome because, I've been watching the rates go up and thinking, is this a smart thing to be doing right now?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we have a lot of our students who, I mean, they come to us to learn how to do remote multifamily investing. And so that's what they're doing. But some of them will also do fix and flips. And that's the same advice we give them. Like, guys, just be cautious. I mean, if nothing else, like, you can observe what we do because we teach what we do. And the fact that we were like, you know what, I like making those big chunks of money, but I can see the writing on the wall. I was around during 2008 and 2009. And I'm more cautious now because I don't ever want to put my family through that kind of difficulty again. And so part of it is adjusting our strategy when we see the market shifting. The one thing I wanted to tell you, Sandy, if you're interested in doing like rehab, another opportunity to still get to do rehab. Now, I'm not going to suggest doing it in person because I will tell you, you'd be shocked at what a learning curve there is, regardless of whether it's in person or remote. There's a ton of learning curve and there's a ton to learn. But doing have you heard of the BRRRR strategy?
Yeah.
Okay, so doing the BRRRR strategy on multifamily, we've done a ton of that. So in the 2 to 4 unit space, it tends to work the best on duplexes. For whatever reasons, quads, that cash flow like monsters, those are difficult to do the BRRRR strategy on because the values aren't typically high enough for you to refinance because it takes a lot more rehab because there's 4 units. So quads don't tend to work as well on the BRRRR, even though those are my favorite types of small multis, but it works really well on duplexes. So anyway, I wanted to throw that out there. If you do decide you want to do it, well, I would say to do it out of state, you will learn a ton, especially if you're using a hard money lender, because you're going to learn how to manage the contractor. You're going to learn how to do draws, how to get the lending. What does it look like? What does your closing statement look like? What should it look like? Dealing with the property manager and when, and marketing. And there's so much to learn. The property being physically near you is, to me, that would be the very smallest part.
Yeah.
And you physically being there is going to probably drive your GC
crazy. A little bit crazy.
Yeah. And also you have the illusion sometimes investing locally is more dangerous. And I want to tell you why. When you are under the impression that because you're physically located there, that you have control over anything is an absolute falsehood, especially if you don't actually know what you're looking at. It's very easy for them to pull one over on you.
Yeah.
And when you're there in person, you'd be like, well, why would I pay an inspector $100 to come and look at this when I can go look myself? But what is it that a 25-year veteran home inspector can see that we can't? Everything. They can see everything we can't. But when it's close, we tend to be like, oh, well, I don't need to use these checks and balances because I'm there. And people get ripped off all the time when they're right there. The house could be next door because we will never be able to be completely emotionally apart from it when we see it. That's one thing. So it's harder to run it as a business. And you're never going to know as much as that home inspector that you're hiring because of his experience or her experience to go in and be your eyes and ears. And it's easier to be like a hard ass when you need to, excuse my language, but when you need to be like, no, my business partners and I, blah, 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 this is our system, this is our process. When you're not physically there, it's easier to have those hard conversations when you need to, than when they get to know you and they give you the whatever sob story they're giving about why they're late. Or so there's so many reasons that I would say that investing remotely will build your skill set in a way that will serve you for life.
No, that's great advice.
It's more of an emotional desire to be able to see it, but oftentimes you'll hurt yourself just because you'll think and believe it's safer and you'll skip all of the protections that we would teach you to put in place.
I can honestly tell you what it looks like to do it yourself and then go do it remotely. And I'll tell you, it's so much better to do it remotely. I think I was making $1,500 every 7 months before because I literally tracked my time, tracked the return and what I got from my partners, which was my dad and my brother, because I brought them for all the sweat equity and sweat, right? But the whole thing is like the phone calls in the middle of the night. And it's such a headache. Wow. And I have a really big heart. So if I had a tenant that's like, oh, I might make some silly business decisions because of my emotion.
Yeah.
And I realized that my emotion and wanting to control everything was limiting me from scaling. And because of that, if I would have just done it sooner, I could have retired. I retired from corporate America in 2015 after 22 years.
Yeah.
I probably could have done it after 12 years if I would have just embraced and had the scalability factor. So it felt, because I'm a massive control freak, it felt like I had control,
Yeah.
but I really didn't. And I have just as much control now as I did in my backyard, but I'm now moving faster and I'm getting a better return and I'm scaling.
Wow,
So,
that's really great advice. I hadn't thought about it, but I talked to Paul Kraus. He was on one call and I was asking him how he did his apartment building, from afar in Chicago. And I was just trying to figure out how you manage your teams. He said he did a lot of Zooms and whatever.
Yeah.
But, I'm like you, I'm not only, somewhat a control freak, but I actually do like learning the process of stuff. And then you can figure out your strategy better, right? I mean,
totally.
Ongoing. So anyway, thank you so much. I don't want to consume your time, but congratulations and thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure.
Ashika,
reliable reports for job growth. Why am I blanking on? Hold, give me 1 second. Like, what is the website? It's a federal website. What the heck is it? I'm totally blanking. All information, Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So the BLS, which is a government agency, they have reports on every, they call it MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. So every MSA, they have literally month by month employment and unemployment reporting. So you can probably just Google Bureau of Labor and Statistics, employment, historical employment rates, and find that chart that will just show you what it's been doing.
One more thing too, if I can, Ashika, because while you were thinking of that, it made me remember. Also, and God, I know I give fish. I'm going to give a fish.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So she's the teacher. She's like, I don't want to give people fish sandwiches. I want to teach them how to fish. I'm going to give you a fish right now. Go to cnbc.com, cnbc.com, and they list the top 10 business states, like the top 10 performing business states in the whole country. And they rank them every year. Okay. So I look at that every year. I see what are the top 10 and where are they? And then go about 75 miles out in a, 75-mile radius around that MSA or whatever it is. Look for different markets where that might be an opportunity. And is Amazon coming in a couple of years, or like what new business is coming in, and so that you can identify this might be a really good emerging market. So I would look at that in once you've identified that, then go look at the job growth in those areas. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
Giving a fish. No, that's like,
If I said, go look at Darby, Pennsylvania,
Right,
that would have been a fish.
that would be a fish. That was just great.
Thank
That
you.
was
Yeah,
random, by the way.
By the way, I don't even know that place.
Tell us a little bit about your coaching program.
Oh, sure.
Your school.
Yeah. So like our primary, the people that are in our program are usually either new to multifamily, or they've already been doing, or they're new to real estate, and then they tend to go in our 2 to 4 unit program, or they've been doing real estate, maybe even small multifamily, and they want to go into apartments. So we have 2 groups within our academy, depending on what they're trying to learn. And the idea is, it's funny because when we developed it, a lot of it was based on what we felt like was missing from the industry, the industry of teaching real estate in general, because I've been in it for a long time. I've been a teacher for a long time. And a lot of what's out there is people will pay a lot of money to go to a seminar for 4 days and then leave with a binder. And then they go to implement it. And what they find out is that it doesn't matter how good the teacher is, you cannot ever predict all of the random different things that are going to go differently deal by deal.
And it's kind of like going to medical school without going to residency.
Yeah. And so part of what we were really compelled when we were trying to put this together in the best way is, how do we have an environment where, one, we educate them, but it's not our goal to educate people. Our goal is to help people get from, I want to do XYZ, get started in real estate or move into apartments, to I've closed on my first property. And then from there, we teach them how to scale. So the way that we built our academy was around, how do we do this in a way that teaches people, but then gets them across the finish line? So we have like an online learning portal where it's everything A to Z. I am so methodical in the way my brain works when I'm trying to learn something, that every single thing, there's a video for literally everything, but It's A to Z. And so people consume it based on whenever they want. It's online. So they want to do it in the middle of the night, or they want to play it at 2 times the speed. If they can possibly understand me at 2 times the speed, then they can do that. So they listen to it within 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how quickly they're going to go through it. And then every week they come to a call. It's kind of like this, except there's more people on it. And we have, Jen and I are there. Sometimes we have our lead coaches run those, and people are bringing their deals and their questions, and they're getting coached in a group environment so that everybody's learning. And then we have a little networking session within that. So everyone goes to breakout rooms so they get a chance to get to know each other, because everyone is from all over the country. So they get to start networking and building
from all over the world. We have
that's true. We have
students
students in Israel too. So you do that. And then they also have one-on-one coaches. So when they're in a deal, they can like get on the phone with their coach and have their coach like look at the details with them. And
they're not just any kind of coach, guys. We have 5 coaches that work at the academy. All of them we've done business with and we have known them for over a decade, and they know and execute our exact model. So we're very picky with who we pick.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah. So that's the academy. It's multifaceted, because you have to have the learning part. And oftentimes someone asks a question and I'm like, I'll answer your question, but I want you to go back and watch this section. Because what happens is when you're like in the very beginning, before you've ever done a deal, everything is new. So you might watch something once and be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But now you're, a few weeks or a few months later, and you're at a different point in your journey. You don't even remember what you learned a month or 2 ago. And you know so much more because now you've learned it and actually done it. And now when you watch those videos, you pick up things that you're like, I've never heard this before, even though it's the exact same video that you had 2 months ago.
Yeah. Our whole approach is because we both invested in our education, and it wasn't stellar. I actually invested multiple times, and I have multiple binders to show that I didn't know how to implement after going to said seminar. So we wanted to disrupt the education industry, which is why we started the academy. So when folks come in, they get lifetime access to that online learning platform, so that if you ever want to go back to it, they can. If I ever wanted to go back to my binders from 10 years ago, they're dilapidated and jacked up, and the paper is all jacked up. But we like them to be able to go back and rewatch, or if they need to touch base on a certain section, go back and be able to do that. And there's also 2 paths. We have 2 programs. It's either 2 to 4 units or 5+ unit apartments. Whichever program you're in, there is a specific roadmap that we say, all right, these are the things that you got to get done, and this is the order in which you do them. And there's just a whole system for them to be able to get that done. And literally all of our students are getting under contract and getting into their first deal in under 90 days. It's so consistent that we actually offer a money back guarantee if it doesn't happen. And then we reward people that if they do get under contract in those 90 days, we'll give you an extra 30 days to get in there. So those are for the people that want to be a fast tracker, right? But if they also might want the 12 months of support, and they don't want to just get into one deal. They want to get into mini deals and learn how to scale and learn how to do all of that. So we've got that 90-day accelerator, and then we've got the come to the Cadillac and learn that whole smooth ride for your scalability. So there's 2 different paths that you can take. It all depends on your personality and what you're trying to accomplish. But it's very fun for us.
It's very fun, and it's fun for everyone to get together. We had our first in-person quarterly intensive. We do it once a quarter, and we did it just a few weeks ago, and we had 50 people. 50 of our students came, and they were all they feel like they've known each other for this past 3 to 12 months on Zoom. And for the fact that they got to meet in person, it was like a family reunion, and the energy was like incredible. And the last time we had an in-person get together was just a party at our house in October. Fast forwarded, 3-4 months, we could look at that group of people. There was 30 of them, and all of them were in deals with each other. They were all in joint ventures with each other, which is what helped us know we probably need to figure out a way to do something somewhat regularly for people to get together in person, because it just solidified those relationships so much more, and allowed people to meet up with people who couldn't necessarily come to the calls. And
it was cool.
It is cool. It's like our group they become a family. Real estate's not easy. Real estate's not easy. Everything doesn't go perfectly. And there's hard times, and there's times where you just want to quit, and you want to be like, F real estate. I never want to even hear the words again. And then the next day you're like, well, it's okay. But people will like hop on, and when someone's going through a hard time and they're just like, I'm just so frustrated and I just don't want to do this. Other people will be like, you know what? I've literally been there. I felt that exact same way. But this is what I did. And now here's where I'm at. And sometimes people can hear that from each other, better than they can hear it from us, because they're like, oh yeah, of course it's easy for you. You've been doing it forever. So screw you. I can't relate to that. So we know that. And so we try to encourage people to talk about the difficult parts too, because that's where the growth is when you figure out how to get through a difficult situation, or how you had to be creative to get to a closing that just wasn't going to happen otherwise. Anyway, it's cool. The people in our group are amazing, and they're givers, and it's just, it's cool. I'm rambling now. I love our students.
Ashika has her hand raised. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't even see it. Okay, yes, I see it now.
So a quick question for you. So the coaching program, do your students stay with the same person throughout their coaching process? Do they get a chance to work with you guys? Or what is sort of the coaching consistency?
That's a good question. We don't coach anymore personally. We haven't since 2019, early 2020. But we attend some of the calls and just sit in, and we're available. And if we see situations where people have questions, we opine and coach in that call. But to answer your question, you get to, when you first enroll, the coach that we identify as the best fit for you based on your goals, your resources, and what you want to accomplish, right? So you get that person and you're with them throughout the duration. If it doesn't feel like it's a fit, then we literally will have a conversation and put you with a different coach. Like, some people don't want to be pushed as hard, and some people do want to be pushed harder. So there's a fit, right? We make sure that you have the best fit. And I will say that there's some of our students that have, like, we just had a couple that re-enrolled for their third year with us, because they see the value in the network, and they see that there's 5 different coaches to learn from. And so they're going in and they're doing a different coach. So that way they can learn a different strategy, because now they're moving into apartments and they want a specific strategy, and they've seen one of the coaches running the calls for the past 2 years, and they're like, I really want to work with that coach now. So there is a lot of room for what you want and what you want to accomplish. In the beginning, we do suggest the coach based on that, in your best interest. And then as you go along in time, if it's a change that you want to make, then you make it.
Nice.
Thank you.
Great.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? William, you have a question? Did we lose him?
No,
Oh,
just
got a
wanted to
question.
know the possible cost, since you don't like New Yorkers and Californians.
We love New Yorkers.
Hold
Jen's
on.
a massive Yankees
I'm going to
fan.
tell you right now, I never said I didn't like
Yankees.
That's
Okay.
right.
I'm a Yankees fan. So
Don't invest in New York. They love New Yorkers. They just don't invest in New
We
York.
have a lot of students who live in New York.
Yeah, we do.
The
We have
reason
52 of our students live in New York.
Yeah, the reason they came to us is because investing in New York is difficult.
Right.
So they came to us to learn
Yes.
how to do it remotely. But yeah, we have lots of our students are from New York. We love New York.
New York.
My parents are from New York.
We have students from
Okay.
Jersey too, so that's what's funny. Actually,
Yeah, in New Jersey and New York, we have a lot of students there. That's
I'm formerly from New Jersey and now in San Diego. So
okay. Okay. Yeah, William, we're happy to have that conversation offline. We don't talk
Okay.
about that, because what we would do is, if that's something you wanted to explore, we'll have one of our strategists meet with you and just find out more about like where you're at and what are your goals, what are you trying to accomplish, to make sure that what we offer is even the right fit for you. And then based on what program makes sense, they'll let you know what the options are, and then kind of go from there.
Oh, I hadn't
Okay.
even.
Do you guys want to put your information on the chat?
Sure.
That way they can connect with you guys directly, and
Sure.
I guess I'll put on my email. I guess normally when we have a Facebook group, what is our Facebook group called?
whatever you want,
Remote.
whatever way would be the best to connect with you guys.
Okay, well, I'll just give my email address, and if you guys want to connect, what I'll do is then I would make an introduction with someone on our team who can then, get on the phone and talk a little bit more about what you're looking for, and whether our academy is a good fit for you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
Yep.
if you guys are looking for, to take it from, I really want to do this, to I've done it. I always recommend you to do your research and make
Yeah.
sure that what you decide to do is actually going to be a good fit for you and is going to get you across the finish line. Because that really is why we decided to do this, because we couldn't find anything out there where the heart and soul of the people who created that organization was about the results of the students. Yeah. And everything about our program is to get you results. Because we know if we can help you do it once, well, first of all, you're probably not going to want to leave because you just want to stay. It's an amazing environment. but we can teach you to do it once with one system, and then you just do it over and over and over. And it took us a long time to perfect the system, but we have, and we're just here to do it with you. And Jen said, like, we don't coach, but like, we're answering questions in our string. You know, sometimes we do a weekly
No, I
ask
just
us
meant we don't
anything. And
take-
yeah, we don't do one-on-one
Right.
coaching
I
anymore.
think that's what she was asking.
Yeah. Well, we have 4 kids. We have investments all over the country. Like, we're eyeballs deep in time commitments to make all of this happen. But we try to stay very connected with our students, because that's like, you're the whole reason we do it.
Oh, I'm the one who does the interview once you close a deal. Like, I'm sure I
Okay.
have students every single deal.
No, that's great. I think that's essential. And I think that sound coaching and the way you do it and strategy from start to finish is so great, because I've gone in several programs that once you get the information, you've left with so much, and that's it, you know.
That
But
was my
because you're
experience.
Yankee fans, and I used to live up the block from Yankee Stadium.
The new one or the old one?
And the new one and the old one. In
Okay.
fact, the youth center, which is near the Yankee Stadium, I helped renovate. It's right next to the
Oh.
new one. But I'm still mad at the Yankees. But I'll trust your 2, not them, because they took half of my playground. Anyway, that's it.
All right. Well, we were past our time, but thank you guys so much. I mean, I think this
Thank you
was
for having us.
incredible. And I think many on this call, this is probably what you're looking for, right? Because I think you can attend a ton of Zoom calls, and you know what, I can share my experiences, and I can share, you know, different steps of different things. And I mean, but it's not the same. I think you probably want an academy, right? You probably want a coach, someone that's going to walk you down that path. And I think, and I love your energy. You know, you guys are awesome. I'd love to have you back, you know, another time, maybe in a month or so. I mean, if you guys are available, I think that would be great.
This has been a blast getting
We
to know
enjoy
your
doing
folks.
this.
Yeah, this is cool.
Wonderful. And you know what? Thank you so much. You guys, anything you need, I'm here to assist as well. I am in California, but you know, I have resources all over as well. So anything I can do to help, I'm here to help. And thank you guys very, very much for being our guest today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Annabelle.
Thank you
Nice
so
to meet
much
you guys.
to all 3 of you. Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a wonderful week.
All right.
Good luck out there. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Everyone. Bye-bye.